If you're over 65 and you have accumulated physical silver over the years, bought at coin shows from local dealers, in cash, without ever thinking you would one day need to prove exactly what you paid, there is a very real possibility you are sitting on a documentation gap that could cost you thousands of dollars the day you decide to sell. Here's the situation playing out for a lot of silver owners right now. They bought steadily over 10, 20, even 30 years. Some purchases had receipts. A lot of them did not, especially the cash transactions from decades ago. When the time comes to sell, they assume they will simply tell their CPA roughly what they paid, and that estimate will be good enough. It might be, it might not be. The difference between those two outcomes comes down to exactly what the IRS actually requires when original records are gone, and almost nobody has been walked through that clearly. Today, we are going to fix that. We are going to cover exactly what happens when you cannot produce a receipt, what the IRS's actual standard is for reconstructing a cost basis, the specific methods that are accepted for silver, and the documentation habits that turn a shaky estimate into a defensible number. By the time we are done, you are going to know 4 things clearly enough to act on them before you ever call a dealer to sell. You will know exactly what the IRS defaults to when you have no records at all, and why that default outcome is the single most expensive mistake a silver owner without receipts can walk into. You will know the general legal principle that allows reasonable, well-documented estimates to stand in for missing receipts, a principle that applies across many types of property, not just silver, and that gives you a real path forward even with incomplete records. You will know the specific reconstruction method that works for silver, using historical spot price data combined with typical dealer premiums for the period you purchased, and where to find that historical data for free. And you will know exactly what kind of supporting evidence strengthens a reconstructed basis enough to survive a challenge, and what a bare, undocumented number looks like when it does not. Before I go one more sentence, let me address the 2 thoughts that make people close a video like this one before it has a chance to help them. The first is, I bought most of my silver in cash decades ago. There's nothing left to find. I want you to hear this clearly. The goal is not to produce a perfect original receipt for every single purchase. The goal is a reasonable, well-documented estimate built from whatever evidence you can actually locate. That is a meaningfully lower bar than most people assume, and it is a bar you can very likely clear with an afternoon of effort. The second thought is, I will just deal with this when I actually decide to sell. I understand that instinct, but the evidence that supports a reconstructed basis gets harder to find with every year that passes. Historical price data does not disappear, but your own memory of exactly when you bought certain pieces and any surviving partial records sitting in old email accounts or drawers become harder to locate and less reliable the longer you wait. The best time to start this reconstruction is now, while you can still ask yourself these questions with some confidence in the answers. Stay with me. I say this at the start of every video, and I mean it every time. I am not a CPA, I'm not a tax attorney, I'm not your financial advisor. Everything you're about to hear is educational, drawn from official IRS record-keeping guidance, specifically IRS Publication 552, and general principles of cost-basis substantiation that apply broadly across many types of property under the tax code. All sources are linked in the description below. Your specific documentation situation is unique to you, and before you rely on any reconstructed basis for a tax filing, please work with a qualified CPA or tax professional who can review what you actually have and help you build the strongest possible record. That conversation is worth more than any video. What I do here at the silver scenario is take what is written in official guidance that most people never read, and put it into language you can actually use before a sale happens and it is too late to fix the documentation gap. And today, what the IRS actually expects when records are incomplete is something every silver owner without a perfect paper trail needs to understand clearly. Let me introduce you to someone, because a documentation problem explained without a person navigating it stays abstract. I want you to meet Harold. Harold is 71 years old, lives in Ohio, and has been buying silver since the early 1990s. He has some receipts from online purchases made in the past 10 years. He has almost nothing from the 1990s and early 2000s, when he bought primarily at coin shows and from a local shop that closed years ago, almost always paying in cash. He estimates he has accumulated somewhere between 400 and 500 ounces over 3 decades, and he genuinely does not know what his average cost per ounce actually was. He assumes this means he is stuck reporting a number he cannot back up, or worse, reporting nothing at all and hoping for the best. Harold's situation is common, and it is also more fixable than he thinks. Let's walk through exactly why. The first thing to understand is what happens if Harold does nothing, if he sells his silver and simply cannot produce any documentation of what he paid and makes no effort to reconstruct a reasonable estimate. The IRS's default position when a taxpayer cannot substantiate their cost basis in an asset is to treat that basis as zero. This means the entire sale proceeds, not just the gain, get treated as taxable income. If Harold sells 100 ounces at today's price of roughly $58 per ounce for $5,800, and he has a zero basis on record, his entire $5,800 becomes taxable gain, subject to the collectibles rate of up to 28% under IRC Section 408M and IRS Topic 409. His federal tax bill on that sale would be up to $124, not because that reflects his actual economic gain, but because he provided no basis at all for the IRS to work with. This is the outcome that a genuine reconstruction effort is specifically designed to prevent. And here is the important part. The zero basis outcome is not the automatic result of having imperfect records. It is the result of having no reasonable documented estimate at all. Those are two very different situations, and the distance between them is exactly what this video covers. The general principle that allows a reasonable estimate to stand in for missing original documentation has a long history in federal tax law, and it applies across many types of property, not just precious metals. Courts in the IRS have consistently recognized that taxpayers are not always able to produce a perfect contemporaneous receipt for every asset they have ever purchased, particularly for property held over long periods. What has consistently been required instead is a good faith, reasonable effort to reconstruct the missing information using whatever credible evidence is available, along with a documented explanation of the methodology used to arrive at the final number. This principle applies to stocks with lost purchase records, to home improvements made decades earlier that increase a home's cost basis, and to collectibles and precious metals in the same general way. The IRS's own record-keeping guidance, found in IRS Publication 552, Record Keeping for Individuals, confirms that when original records are unavailable, taxpayers should reconstruct their records as accurately as possible using any available supporting information. The publication does not require a perfect original receipt. It requires a genuine, reasonable documented effort. For Harold, this means the path forward is not to guess at a number and hope nobody ever asks. It is to build a specific, documented, defensible estimate using a recognized method. And for silver specifically, that method is well established. Quick question, and I do read these. Before today, did you know that a reasonable documented reconstruction of your cost basis is generally accepted by the IRS, even when you do not have your original purchase receipts? Type yes or no in the comments. Your answers tell me exactly how far this information is reaching the silver owners who need it most. Now let's talk about the specific reconstruction method that works for silver, because this is where Harold's situation becomes genuinely solvable. The accepted approach combines two pieces of information: the historical spot price of silver on or near the approximate date you made a purchase, and a reasonable estimate of the typical dealer premium that applied during that period. Silver's daily historical spot price is a matter of public record, freely available going back decades through sources like Kitco's Historical Price Archives and the London Bullion Market Association's own published price history. This is not information that requires any special access or paid service to obtain. It is published and freely searchable by date. Here is how Harold would actually apply this. He recalls with reasonable confidence that he made a significant portion of his early purchases sometime in 1998 and 1999, when he remembers silver being unusually cheap. He looks up the historical spot price for silver during that window, which was trading in a range of roughly $5 to $5.50 per ounce during much of that period, according to publicly available historical price data. He then applies a reasonable estimate of the dealer premium that would have been typical at the time for the type of product he recalls buying. Coin shop premiums on common bullion products have historically run somewhere in the range of a modest percentage above spot, though the exact figure varies by product type and era. Combining those two pieces, Harold arrives at a documented, reasoned estimate of what he likely paid per ounce during that specific window. Not a guess pulled from nowhere, but a number built from verifiable historical data and a defensible assumption about typical market premiums for that era. The critical step that many people skip is documenting the methodology itself, not just the final number. Harold should write down in plain language which purchases this estimate applies to, the approximate date range he is basing this on, and why he believes that date range is accurate, the specific historical spot price data he referenced, and its source, the premium assumption he applied and why he considers it reasonable, and the resulting per ounce basis he calculated. This written methodology, kept alongside whatever other evidence exists, is what transforms a bare number into a defensible position. Now let's talk about the supporting evidence that strengthens this kind of reconstruction, because a documented methodology built purely on memory is weaker than one supported by even partial corroborating evidence. Bank and credit card statements, even if the specific line item does not say silver dealer, can sometimes corroborate the timing, an approximate amount of a purchase, if Harold paid by check or card rather than cash. Old dealer emails, even incomplete ones, An order confirmation, a shipping notice, a follow-up email about a return policy can establish that a relationship with a specific dealer existed during a specific window, supporting the plausibility of the purchase timeline Harold is claiming. Partial receipts, even for just some of the purchases in a large position, help establish a pattern that supports the reasonableness of estimates applied to the rest. And a consistent, documented pattern of purchases over time, even without pinpoint precision on every transaction, supports the overall credibility of the reconstruction as a genuine, good faith effort, rather than a number invented after the fact specifically to minimize tax. None of these pieces of evidence needs to be a smoking gun original receipt. Together, they build a picture that supports the reasonableness of Harold's reconstructed basis, which is exactly what the underlying legal principle asks for. If this is giving you a clear path forward on something that felt overwhelming before today, tap the like button right now. It tells the platform to put this video in front of other silver owners who have been avoiding this exact problem because they assumed there was no solution. Now, the risk that Harold needs to understand clearly, because there is a real difference between a defensible estimate and an undefendable one. If Harold reports a reconstructed basis on his tax return with no supporting documentation whatsoever behind it, no written methodology, no historical price research, no corroborating evidence of any kind, just a number he decided to use, and that return is ever questioned, the IRS can reject the unsupported estimate. If that happens, the practical result is often that the basis reverts to zero, because an unsupported number carries no more weight than no number at all. The entire value of the reconstruction exercise lies in the documentation behind it. A number without a methodology is not meaningfully different, in the eyes of an examiner, from a guess. This is why the written methodology step is not optional busywork. It is the entire point. The historical spot price research, the premium assumption, the written explanation of why the date range is credible, all of that is what separates a defensible reconstructed basis from an indefensible one, even when the final dollar figure looks similar on paper. Let me give Harold and you the complete practical process, step by step. Step 1. Separate your silver into purchase eras based on your best recollection. Harold might reasonably separate his holdings into 3 groups. Silver, he is fairly confident he bought in the late 1990s, silver he bought sometime in the mid-2000s, and silver purchased more recently where he actually has receipts. Trying to pinpoint every single ounce to an exact date is usually unnecessary and often impossible. Reasonable date ranges are an accepted part of this process. Step 2. For each era, without documentation, research the historical spot price range for that period using a free, reputable source like Kitco's historical charts or the London Bullion Market Association's published price archives. Record the specific price range you found and where you found it. Step 3. Apply a reasonable documented premium assumption for that era and product type. If you genuinely do not know what premiums looked like decades ago, a conservative, modest premium assumption clearly labeled as an estimate is more defensible than assuming no premium was paid at all, since dealers virtually always charge some premium above spot. Step 4. Write down your complete methodology in a single document. The date ranges, the sources you used, the assumptions you made, and the resulting basis figures. Keep this document with whatever partial records, old emails, and statements you have located. Step 5. Gather every scrap of corroborating evidence you can find, even partial or incomplete. Old dealer emails, bank statements from years you recall making purchases, any partial receipts, photos of purchase confirmations if you have them. None of it needs to be complete on its own. Together, it supports the credibility of your overall reconstruction. Step 6. Before you sell any silver you cannot fully document, bring this entire reconstruction file to a qualified CPA. They can review what you have built, tell you where it is strong and where it needs more support, and help you understand how confident you should be in the resulting number before you rely on it for a tax filing. This process will not produce a perfect number. It is not supposed to. It is supposed to produce a reasonable, well-documented, defensible number, which is precisely what the underlying legal standard asks for, and precisely what stands between Harold and a zero-basis outcome that would cost him real, unnecessary tax. Before I let you go, one final question. If you are over 65 and holding silver without complete purchase records, have you started any kind of reconstruction effort yet? Or is this the first time you have thought through how to actually approach it? Tell me honestly in the comments. Your answers help me understand exactly what this channel should cover next to help people through this process. If this video gave you a genuine, actionable path forward on something that felt unsolvable before today, hit subscribe. The next time an IRS record-keeping question has a silver-specific dimension that most owners are navigating without the right process, you will hear it explained clearly here at the silver scenario. And send this to one silver owner you know who has been avoiding thinking about their missing receipts, hoping the problem would somehow resolve itself. It will not resolve itself. But it is a solvable problem, and now they know exactly how to start solving it. I will see you in the next one. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. IRS record-keeping standards, cost basis reconstruction principles, and collectibles tax rules referenced are based on official IRS publications, including IRS Publication 552 and General Principles of Tax Law as of 2026, and are subject to change. Every individual's documentation situation and the sufficiency of any reconstructed basis is fact-specific. Please consult a qualified CPA or tax professional to review your specific records and reconstruction before relying on any estimate for a tax filing.